You might look good, you might be polite, hardworking, even a nice guy. But if you've got these habits, people will see you as weak. And the worst part? You won't even realize it. They'll smile at you, compliment your kindness, but deep down, they've already placed you on the shelf with the disposable ones. That's why she pulled away. That's why people treat you like nice but boring. That's why you walk into a room and nothing changes. It's not about looks or brains. It's about language. The silent language of your actions. The ones you repeat every day that slowly strip away your value. Quietly, without warning, and without giving you a chance to fight back. The good news? You can change this. The bad news? Nobody's going to teach you how. Not your teachers, not your parents, not your friends, not even the society that keeps telling you to just be nice. But here you'll learn what every man needs to know to get back his respect, presence, and attraction. Today, you're going to see the 5 silent habits that make you a weak man, and how to eliminate them from your life for good. Because the world doesn't need another guy begging for attention. It needs a man who walks in and gets noticed, even in silence. First habit, constantly seeking approval. There are men out there who don't even realize how much they lower themselves every single day. They think they're just being polite, respectful, kind, but in reality, they're handing over their own leadership just to be accepted. Every time you say, "Is this okay? Do you like it better this way? Does this bother you?" What you're actually saying is, "I'm afraid of making a mistake." And when you're afraid of messing up, what you're really showing, without saying a word, is that you don't trust yourself. Now here's the brutal part. The world picks up on that fear. People feel it. Women, especially. They can tell when you're trying to please just to be accepted, and not because you actually believe in what you're doing. A man who lives begging for validation doesn't create attraction. He creates pity, or worse, boredom. He becomes predictable, anxious, and emotionally fragile. And emotional fragility in a man, most people read that as being unfit to handle responsibility. Want a real-life example? It's the guy who plans dinner and then sends 15 texts asking, "Are you excited? Do you want to go somewhere else? Hope I didn't go overboard." He thinks he's being sweet, but he's just shrinking himself. What he's really saying is, "Tell me what to do. Tell me everything's okay, because I don't know how to own my choices." And a man who doesn't back himself won't be backed by anyone else. This shows up in small stuff too. The guy who asks if he can post a photo, send a text, or make a call. Now, nothing against communication and respect, but when a man needs permission for everything, he ends up relying on a woman's response just to feel like he exists. What starts as, "Can I call you?" slowly turns into, "Can I be myself?" And little by little, he disappears. One gesture at a time. Want respect? Start trusting your own decisions. Want to be valued? Stop negotiating who you are. A man who chooses, stands firm, and owns it. He radiates something rare, presence. And presence is magnetic. But all of that starts to crumble when you make the next mistake. Second habit, not knowing how to say. A man who says yes to everything becomes a doormat. And you know what people do to doormats. They wipe their feet and move on. Harsh? Maybe. But that's exactly what happens when a man doesn't know how to set boundaries. He's not seen as kind. He's seen as weak. Because when you agree to everything, what you're really saying is, "Use me." And when you offer yourself too much, people stop valuing you. How many times have you canceled something important because someone asked you for just a quick favor? How many times have you swallowed your discomfort just to avoid upsetting someone? A man who always says yes thinks he's being understanding, supportive, approachable. But in the eyes of others, he's predictable, spineless, lacking standards. He doesn't know how to protect his own time, his own space, or his own peace. Here's the truth. Women test. They want to feel if a man has backbone, if he knows where he stands, if he has the guts to say no when it's necessary. And the man who can't say no quietly loses their respect. Every time you say yes just to avoid discomfort, you're showing that your peace depends on their approval. And that's the opposite of presence. That's emotional submission, disguised as kindness. Saying no is uncomfortable at first. You fear rejection. You fear being disliked. And that's exactly why most men never do it. But no creates value. No says, "This is my boundary. If you want to stay, you'll have to respect it." That attracts, that filters, that commands. But if you keep saying yes, you won't even notice when you've lost your voice. And the worst part? The world won't warn you when it stops listening. It'll just ignore you. Third habit, talking too much or over-explaining. A man who talks too much is always trying to convince. And if you're always trying to convince people, it's probably because you're not fully convinced yourself. The energy of a high-value man is the opposite. He speaks less, but when he does, it's firm. He doesn't explain every step, he doesn't apologize for existing, and he sure doesn't try to prove himself. He simply is, and that alone commands presence. You know that guy who sends long texts explaining why he didn't reply, who justifies himself before anyone even asks, who needs to make it clear, "I didn't mean anything by it. I was just busy. I hope you understand." He thinks he's being mature, communicative, but really, he's just kneeling down emotionally. He's saying, "Please understand me, don't judge me, accept me." And that kind of energy repels, because it screams neediness, not strength. Some men think they have to explain everything to keep the peace, but over-talking is the perfect escape for those who can't own their decisions. A man with presence doesn't explain himself all the time. He observes, he listens, he speaks when needed. And more importantly, he stays silent when silence says more than 1,000 words. That confident silence, that's what commands respect. But the man who talks too much gets lost in his own echo. Here's the truth. The more you explain, the more you show that you're asking for permission to be who you are. And when you need permission to exist, you give up your right to be seen as an authority. And this becomes even clearer when that same man, besides talking too much, also starts avoiding what truly matters. Fourth habit, avoiding conflict at all costs. Some men confuse peace with passivity. They think avoiding any kind of conflict means they're mature, that staying silent in the face of injustice is wisdom, but it's not. It's fear. Fear of upsetting people, fear of being rejected, fear of losing the tiny bit of approval they get for never standing up for themselves. And deep down, a man who fears conflict is afraid of being himself. When you swallow your truth just to keep the peace, you're not being balanced, you're being erased. You're choosing silence not out of strategy, but out of emotional cowardice. And the worst part? The more you avoid the discomfort of standing your ground, the more you teach the world to ignore you. Because the world can feel it. Women feel it. They test, they push, they challenge. And when they see that you always back down, they realize you're not the man who stands behind his words. Want a practical example? The guy who agrees with everything just to keep the vibe chill. The one who laughs at disrespectful jokes in the group just to be accepted. The one who watches his girl cross the line and pretends not to care. That guy is training people to disrespect him because that's exactly what he does to his own voice, his own will, his own truth. Avoiding conflict doesn't fix anything. It only delays the pain. And pain that gets delayed, it comes back louder and with interest. Strong men know that discomfort is part of growth. They know not every argument is a fight. And sometimes staying silent only feeds the chaos. Running from confrontation isn't noble, it's childish. And when a man starts running even from himself, he doesn't even notice how much he depends on others just to feel like he matters. And that's exactly where the final silent habit is born, the one that traps a man in emotional prison. Fifth habit, needing a woman's approval to feel good. Nothing destroys a man faster than handing his self-worth to someone else. And that's exactly what happens when you only feel good if a woman replies, validates, or shows interest. If your whole mood depends on a hey, an emoji, or a like, you're not in love. You're in emotional survival mode, and women can smell that from miles away. A man who lives for a woman's attention isn't romantic. He's needy. And neediness, disguised as romance, is one of the most unattractive things a woman can feel. You don't become the center of her attention. You become a burden. You become that guy, the one who revolves around her, waiting for crumbs of affection just to feel like someone again. And that kills off every trace of masculinity you might have had. You've seen it, right? The guy who loses focus at work, in the gym, in his goals, just because she didn't text back. Or the guy who starts doing everything she likes just to get some attention again. He thinks he's showing interest. But what he's really showing is emotional submission. What he's saying is, without you, I don't feel enough. And the moment a woman senses that, she stops seeing him as a man of value, a real man. He likes, he cares, he connects, but he never loses himself. He has his own life, his own mission, his own center. Because when you depend on a woman's approval to feel good, that's not love, that's idolization. And the second she realizes she's on a pedestal, she won't admire you. She'll walk away, because desire doesn't grow where there's dependency. It grows where there's respect, and respect only exists where there's inner balance. Being a man isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about knowing who you are, where you stand, and what you'll never tolerate in silence again. If you saw yourself in any of these habits, don't blame yourself. Most men were conditioned to be this way, to chase approval, avoid conflict, and explain themselves constantly. But there comes a time when you either change or you get crushed. So now I ask you, honestly, how many of these habits are still part of you? How many times a week do you trade your worth for crumbs? And more importantly, what are you going to do with everything you heard today? If this hit home for you, subscribe to the channel right now. No fluff, no fake motivation. This is where men stop asking for permission and start being respected in silence. Stay strong, and God bless you.